The night I found out he cheated, he made me feel like I was the one who owed him an apology. It started with a text. Not even one meant for me. His phone was charging on the couch, and I only picked it up to move it so it wouldn't fall. But then a notification popped up, a message from someone named Kira Crescentmoon. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. I remember the way my stomach just flipped. Not dramatically like in the movies, no, it was quiet. A silent kind of falling. Like the air had been punched out of me, and I was trying to keep breathing so I wouldn't collapse. I opened it. I shouldn't have. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. And there it was, an entire thread. Weeks of it. Pictures. Voice notes. Her calling him baby. Him telling her how good she made him feel. Complaints about me, about how I'm always too tired, how he needs to feel wanted. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there in our living room, holding the phone like a bomb that had already gone off. When he came home, I was sitting on the floor with the phone in my hands. He froze, eyes flicking to the screen, then back to me. For a moment, I thought I'd see guilt. Panic. Something. But he just sighed. Like I was being dramatic. Seriously, he muttered, dropping his keys on the table. You went through my phone? That's what he said. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can explain. Just accusation. I said his name quietly. Who's Kira? He shrugged, ran a hand through his hair like this was all so inconvenient. She's someone who listens. Someone who doesn't shut me out every time I want to be close. I felt the words sting like acid. You cheated on me. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. Don't make it sound like that. It's not like I love her. He gestured vaguely. Had needs. You've been distant for months. Always tired, always pushing me away. I talked to you about it. You brushed me off like I was some horny idiot. I swallowed. I was grieving. My father had just died. I know, he snapped. And who was there for you? Me. I was there. Every night. Every breakdown. I put my life on pause for you. I was patient. And what did I get back? Cold shoulders and excuses. So forgive me for not being a saint. The room tilted. Not literally, but that's how it felt. Like gravity suddenly chose sides. Some part of me wanted to scream. Another part just wanted to disappear. But the loudest part was quiet, the part that whispered, maybe he's right. I whispered, so this is my fault? He threw up his hands. I'm not saying it's your fault. But I'm not the bad guy either. You can't neglect someone for months and expect them to just take it forever. I didn't respond. Because I couldn't. He went to shower like nothing had happened. And I just sat there. On the floor. Holding my breath. Because in some twisted way, I felt like I owed him something. Like I'd failed him. That was the first night of the longest month of my life. The first week after finding out felt less like a breakup and more like a negotiation I didn't sign up for. We didn't talk about it the next morning. I woke up with that heavy ache in my chest, the kind you feel before your tears even know they're supposed to fall. He was already in the kitchen, making coffee like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in our home the night before. When I walked in, he looked up at me, not nervous, not apologetic. Just tired. Like I had worn him out. Morning, he said. I couldn't bring myself to say it back. I just nodded, sat down at the table. After a few minutes of silence, he put his mug down and leaned against the counter. Look, he said, I don't want us to turn this into some huge thing. I blinked at him. You cheated on me. He tilted his head like he was trying to explain basic math to a child. I slipped. Once. And yeah, I shouldn't have. But you act like I'm some monster. I've been loyal to you for years. And when I needed you, when I wanted to feel close to you, you kept shutting me down. I'm a guy, I have needs. I tried talking to you. I know what you said, I whispered. He nodded, like I was proving his point. Exactly. I said it. You ignored it. So, what did you expect? That I'd just live like a monk while you iced me out. The worst part wasn't his words. It was how calm he was. How reasonable he made it sound. Like I'd left him starving and he'd just eaten. I should have screamed. I should have walked out that moment. Instead, I felt small. Guilt has a way of creeping in like fog. I started replaying all the nights I said I was tired. All the moments I brushed him off because I was too broken to let anyone touch me. My father's death still sat heavy on my chest, but he had been there. He really had. He'd stayed up with me when I cried, held me when I couldn't breathe, reminded me to eat. To him, that was love. So now, I felt like I owed him mine in return in every way. So I said the words I didn't even believe. "I'm sorry." His shoulders relaxed, like that was what he'd been waiting for. He stepped closer, touched my cheek lightly, and said, "I don't want to lose you. But I need to feel like I matter to you too. I can't be begging for scraps forever." Begging. Scraps. I swallowed hard. I didn't agree with him. But I didn't disagree either. I just stood there and let him hold me. The next few days were strange. We went through the motions of normal life, breakfast together, work, TV at night, but everything was tilted. I tried harder. I dressed nicer. Initiated conversations. Even intimacy. Not because I was ready, but because I thought maybe if I tried hard enough, we could erase what happened. But here's the thing about trying to fix something that only one person broke. It doesn't fix. It just hurts quieter. Whenever I tried to bring up the cheating again, he'd brush me off. "Why are we still talking about this? I told you it was a mistake. Are you going to keep punishing me for one slip?" It was like the moment I apologized, he decided the issue was closed. He got to be forgiven. I got to live with the aftertaste. And still, I stayed. I told myself it was because I loved him, because he'd been there when no one else was. But deep down, I think it was because I wanted to believe he could be the same man who held me when my world fell apart. But that man wasn't here anymore. Or maybe, he never really was. By the second week, silence became its own language in the house. It wasn't the kind that came after a fight, no yelling, no slammed doors. It was the quiet that fills a room when someone decides a conversation is over, even though you never got to speak. He started coming home later. First it was work. Then it was the guys. Then it was just no explanation at all. And when I asked, he'd look at me like I was being controlling. "God, can I breathe?" he snapped one night when I asked why he didn't pick up his phone. "I told you, we're trying to move on from this. Stop acting like a cop." I remember standing in the kitchen in my pajamas, holding a half-washed mug, staring at him. I wasn't trying to be a cop. I was trying to make sense of a life that didn't feel like mine anymore. I tried. I really did. I started planning dinners, just us two. Lit candles. Tried to talk to him about his day. Some nights he'd play along, smiling that easy smile that used to make me feel safe. Other nights, he'd scroll on his phone while I talked, offering lazy yes and mmhms. It was like living with someone who kept their body in the house, but left their heart somewhere else. I caught myself changing, and not in a good way. I'd stand in front of the mirror longer, trying to figure out what version of me he wanted. Shorter skirts? More makeup? Less of my tired, grieving, too much self? I hated myself for it. But I still did it. One night, I tried to initiate something intimate. Not because I wanted it, but because I wanted to feel wanted. His hands were warm, his lips familiar, but everything about it felt off. Forced. Like I was auditioning for a part I'd already lost. After, he rolled away and scrolled through his phone. Not a word. Not a glance. Just cold blue light on his face while I lay there feeling emptier than I had when we weren't touching at all. I started apologizing for things I didn't even do wrong. "Sorry, I didn't mean to sound needy. Sorry, I know you're tired. Sorry, I won't bring it up again." It became automatic, like breathing. And every time I said sorry, he acted softer. Not because he regretted anything, but because it meant I'd accepted the blame. He would say things like, "See? We're fine. You just need to stop holding on to the past," or "You're finally starting to understand me again." Understand him. That's what it always came back to. Understanding him. His needs. His stress. His frustration. His loneliness. He never asked about mine. By the middle of that week, I stopped expecting him to. I told myself this was temporary. A rough patch. A bad chapter in an otherwise good book. But some nights, when the house got too quiet and the ceiling felt too close, a small voice inside me would whisper something I didn't want to hear. This isn't a chapter. This is the whole story. I'd roll over, stare at his sleeping back, and wonder if the man lying next to me had ever really loved me, or if he just loved being loved by someone who needed him. And even as the doubt grew louder, I stayed. Because I still remembered the version of him who stayed up all night with me when my dad died. Because I still believed maybe if I fixed myself enough, he'd come back. By the third week, I had memorized the rhythm of his deflections. The way he'd sigh before answering, the way he'd twist my concern into an accusation. It started to feel like he was reading from a script, one I didn't know I'd agreed to act in. He'd say, "You're always waiting for me to mess up." Or, "You keep holding this over my head. How's that fair?" And my personal favorite, "You're obsessed with making me the bad guy." Every time, I'd stumble trying to explain myself, trying to convince him I wasn't attacking. That I just wanted honesty. But somehow, no matter how it began, every conversation ended with me apologizing. It was like emotional quicksand. The more I tried to stand my ground, the deeper I sank. He'd come home later and later. When I asked where he'd been, he'd smile and say, "Work," like the single word was a full sentence. Once I pressed, just lightly, and he laughed. "You don't trust me, huh? Guess that's what happens when you can't let things go." It was subtle, almost elegant, the way he flipped the narrative. I was no longer the hurt girlfriend, I was the paranoid one. The dramatic one. The one poisoning the relationship with negativity. And slowly, I started to believe him. He'd throw in reminders of everything he'd done for me, the nights he drove me home when I couldn't stop crying, the money he lent when I couldn't pay rent, the way he never left even when things got hard. It wasn't affection anymore. It was currency. Debt I was expected to repay. So I cooked. I cleaned. I stopped asking questions. I stopped bringing up the texts, the late nights, the distance. I thought maybe if I just gave him peace, things would go back to how they were. But peace, I learned, isn't the same as silence. The few times I tried to talk about what I felt, he'd frown and say, "You're still stuck in the past. I can't fix this if you won't move forward." And I'd say, "I'm trying," even though what I really meant was, "I'm breaking." One night, I found him sitting on the couch, phone in hand, smiling at something. I asked what was funny. He locked the screen and said, "Nothing." When I asked again, gently, he rolled his eyes. "God, you're exhausting sometimes. Why do you need to know every detail of my life? You think I'm out here planning some conspiracy?" I felt the heat rise in my chest. "You cheated on me, Leo. You lied for weeks. I think I have the right to know what you're laughing about when you won't even look me in the eye." He laughed, sharp and low. "And there it is. You just can't move on, can you? You'd rather keep replaying one mistake than let us heal." He made one mistake sound like spilling coffee on the rug. I went to bed early that night, facing the wall. He didn't follow. The next morning, he kissed my forehead before leaving for work like everything was fine. Like gaslighting me had become his love language. And that was the morning I started writing everything down. The conversations. The contradictions. The dates. The late returns. Not because I needed proof for him, but because I needed proof for myself. I needed to remember that I wasn't crazy. That what I was feeling was real. Somewhere deep down, I already knew the truth. He hadn't stopped. He just got better at hiding it. By the end of that third week, something inside me shifted. Not snapped, not yet. Cracked. Just enough for light to leak through. It started on a Wednesday night. He said he was working late. Again. Same excuse. Same tired tone. But something about the way he avoided my eyes when he left, the way he grabbed his jacket too fast, set off a quiet alarm in my chest. I told myself not to spiral. But I've learned something about instincts. They don't scream, they whisper. And those whispers can feel like knives when you've spent weeks pretending you don't hear them. I sat on the couch for hours after he left, staring at the clock. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock, my phone stayed silent. He used to text me updates constantly. Now, I got nothing but my own heartbeat. By 11:30, I couldn't breathe properly. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was a deep, hollow kind of numbness. Like my body already knew what my mind was too scared to say out loud. I opened my laptop. Checked his location. He'd turned it off. He never used to do that. I called once. No answer. Twice. Straight to voicemail. Then, without planning it, I started putting on my shoes. Hoodie. Keys. Purse. My hands were steady, but my chest was burning. I wasn't sure if I wanted to catch him or if I just needed to stop lying to myself. His car wasn't at the office when I got there. The parking lot was empty except for the yellow glow of the streetlights. I waited anyway. 20 minutes. 30. Nothing. I drove around aimlessly for a while, and when I finally pulled over at a random coffee shop, the truth sank in like a stone. This wasn't about work. It hadn't been for a long time. I went home that night and stared at our bedroom ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just lay there, trying to figure out what it would take for me to finally stop forgiving someone who didn't care if they were forgiven. The next few days, I paid attention. I mean, really paid attention. The shirts that smelled like perfume that wasn't mine. The showers at odd hours. The way he'd smile at his phone but turn it face down when I walked in. And his excuses? They weren't even creative anymore. Just work. Stop being paranoid. You're ruining this relationship by not trusting me. No. He was ruining it. I was just the one still holding the pieces, cutting my hands trying to keep them together. I started following his patterns when he left, when he came back, how long it took. I wasn't proud of it. But surviving someone's betrayal makes you a detective against your will. The night before the final break, he came home smelling faintly of perfume again. Sweet. Cheap. Not mine. I asked softly, "Who is she?" He froze for a fraction of a second before laughing. "You're still on that?" "Yes," I whispered. He ran a hand through his hair. "You're so dramatic sometimes, you know that? You keep trying to make me into the villain. If you'd just trust me again, we'd be fine." And there it was, the final twist of the knife. Because I realized then that he didn't care if I believed him. He just needed me to keep trying. That night, as he fell asleep next to me, I made a silent promise to myself. I was going to find out the truth. Not because I needed to prove anything to him, but because I needed to stop doubting me. The next time he said, "I'm going to work," I'd follow. And when I saw what I already knew, I'd finally stop making excuses for the man who turned my love into a debt. He came home later than usual that night. His shirt was half unbuttoned, his cologne mixed with the faint smell of another woman's perfume, one that didn't belong to me. I was sitting on the couch, lights dim, waiting. My phone had a text open, the one I'd sent earlier. "Are you coming home?" He hadn't replied. He walked in like nothing was wrong, tossed his keys on the table, and gave me that same exhausted, fake smile. "Why are you awake?" he asked, stretching like a man who had just clocked out of a normal shift. I didn't answer immediately. I studied him, the slightly smug curve of his mouth, the looseness in his movements. He was comfortable. Too comfortable. "I followed you today," I finally said. My voice was steady, though my chest was tight. He froze, just a second. Barely noticeable. But I caught it. His hand slid into his pocket, his jaw clenched. "What?" I stood slowly, keeping my eyes on him. "You weren't at work, Malik. I know where you were." He laughed, that low, sarcastic laugh that used to make me feel small. "So now you're stalking me?" "No. I was just tired of being lied to." He stepped closer, shoulders squared, eyes narrowing. "I told you already, you pushed me away. You made this happen." I blinked at him. It was almost absurd, how casual he was about it. "I made you cheat on me?" "Don't say it like that," he snapped. "You haven't touched me in months. You're always tired or stressed or busy. You think I don't have needs?" "I stood by you through everything, Maya. When your dad died, I was the one who held you. When you broke down, I stayed. And this," he gestured at himself, as if he was some sort of prize, "this is how you repay me? By neglecting me." His words hit me like a wave, not because they were true, but because he believed them. Deep down, he genuinely believed he was justified. "You're blaming me for your choices?" I whispered. "I'm telling you the truth," he said, tone firm, like a man delivering logic to a child. "You made me feel unwanted. So yeah, I look somewhere else. At least she makes me feel alive." That last line sliced through me like a blade. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My hands were trembling, nails digging into my palms. The world around me felt smaller, suffocating. All I could hear was my heartbeat and his steady, emotionless breathing. I should have left then, but I didn't. I swallowed it, all of it, like I had every other time. "I'll try harder," I heard myself say. The words tasted like ashes in my mouth. "We can fix this." His shoulders relaxed, like he'd just won an argument. Good. That's all I needed to hear. And just like that, he kissed my forehead, walked past me, and went to take a shower like nothing had happened. Like I was the one who needed to apologize. The next few weeks were a blur of me trying to piece together something that was already broken. I started dressing up more. Tried initiating intimacy, even when I didn't feel like it. Cooked dinner, cleaned the house, forced conversations. I was begging for crumbs of attention from a man who no longer respected me. But no matter what I did, he was distant. Malik would leave for work earlier, come home later, and his excuses got lazier. He'd say things like, "We've just grown apart," or "I wish you were like you used to be." And every time I internalized it. I told myself, maybe if I was just better, maybe if I didn't shut down when I was grieving, maybe then he wouldn't have done this. But slowly, cracks started forming in the lies. He'd slip up, mention something about a restaurant he supposedly hadn't been to, or he'd smile when a message popped up and immediately flip his phone face down. And every single night, that same perfume, light, floral, mocking me, lingered on him. I started losing myself trying to win him back. It wasn't until the 4th week that I decided to follow him again. I told him I had errands to run. He said he was going to a late shift, but I waited outside the building where he worked. He never showed. Instead, his car turned down a street on the far side of town, a neighborhood I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted as I followed him, headlights off, keeping my distance. The road ended at a small apartment complex. I parked down the street and watched him step out of his car, fixing his shirt, a smile spreading across his face. A woman opened the door before he even knocked. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at them. It felt like my body wasn't mine anymore, like I'd stepped out of myself and was watching it all from above. He leaned down, kissed her like she was the only person who mattered. He touched her like he used to touch me. Something broke inside me then, not in a loud, shattering way. No, it was quiet. A small, final snap. When I got home that night, I didn't cry. I just sat in silence. For the first time, I saw it clearly. He wasn't some broken man needing love. He wasn't someone who just slipped up. He was selfish. He was cruel. And he was gaslighting me into believing his betrayal was my fault. He made me question my worth. And I let him. That night, as he came home with that same perfume clinging to him, I finally realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. I didn't love him anymore. The last week of the month was me quietly preparing to leave. I stopped arguing. Stopped begging. Stopped trying to fix what was never mine to fix. I started packing my things slowly, bit by bit. He didn't notice, or maybe he just didn't care. When the final day came, I left everything that reminded me of him on the kitchen table. The keys, the framed photo, the letters we once wrote. I left a note. Not a long one. Just, "You broke something you can't fix. I'm done." I walked out without looking back. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe.